Welcome to our podcast, Always Many Incidents. This is podcast number 1. We're going to be delving into ghost stories, scary incidents, paranormal, things that maybe we can't address on our Top of Everything podcast. Today, the first tale we're going to bring you is called Always Many Incidents That You Virtually Inevitably Learned of Lasting Evil. A true story that happened to me. I hope you enjoy it. The brothers screamed in our faces at our ineptitude. One of the more likable brothers held up the brick we had painted the night before. On it, the word brotherhood. You guys, you fucking guys. I laughed. 3 brothers were immediately in my face. Something funny, Relroy? Relroy was my pledge name, the name I would go by for 6 weeks, my freshman year at Hofstra University, home of the Flying Dutchman, now known as the Hofstra Pride. Brotherhood not serious to you, Relroy? I knew not to answer. You guys don't know what brotherhood is. You'll never be brothers, Jeff yelled in our faces with a twinkle in his eye. Me and Scrub exchanged knowing glances. Here we go again. Here's what I think of your brotherhood. And he smashed the brick into thousands of pieces, to our fake dismay and the drunk brothers' absolute delight. They howled with laughter and derision at us and ordered us to piece it back together. As we attempted this impossible fool's errand, another brother playing good cop came over, urging us to get to our feet and get back in line. And so it went. It was the dance that we would play through those torturous yet memorable weeks of tomfoolery and hazing and, bonding with the brothers and one another as we sought to become full brothers in Tau Cap Epsilon, Mu Mu Chapter, Hofstra U. The brick hunt, as it was called, was one of the more exciting and fun nights of pledging. We would meet in a field somewhere on campus where the brothers would gather to drink, encourage and insult us, usually all at once. They would then provide us clues and rhymes that would guide us to the hiding spots of hidden bricks painted with meaningful words like unity, charity, esteem, trust, and the final and most important brick, love. The first couple bricks were usually somewhere around campus and fairly easy to find, like a dean's office. The next few clues became harder to decipher, and the bricks became progressively harder to find. Here's an example. An Irishman and a Jew didn't know what to do, so they pooled their money and they named it funny. The brick is there with a fire punny. McKeeb's Depot, school bar of choice. Hempstead Turnpike with some hot upper class sorority girl that otherwise wouldn't give us freshmen the time of the day. Get it? McKeeb's Depot. Or in summertime, you find us here. You may get sand in your rear. Somewhere near 6, not 7, in the girls' bathroom, a brick can be heaven. That would be Jones Beach, Field 6, girls' bathroom. The fun part is, of course, that at 10 o'clock at night, a bunch of frat boys trying to get to Field 6, which would be closed, to then get into the girls' bathroom, which would be locked, and not get arrested or break any laws in the process, which we did. Inevitably, we would find the brick. We would return it to the brothers, and they would smash it to pieces before our eyes, lamenting our pathetic showing. But the last brick, the rumor was always the toughest, and most pledge classes failed to complete it. In other words, the brothers would make it nearly impossible. We were determined to come home with it no matter the consequences. It was after 1 a.m. when they prepared to read the clue, and I will never forget it to this day. Always many incidents that you virtually, inevitably learned of lasting evil. What the fuck? Always many incidents that you virtually, inevitably learned of lasting evil? I mean, I kind of like the sound of it. It sounded like this would be fun, but what the hell did it mean? They then handed it us to confirm. What the fuck is this shit? Not now, ranted in his broken English. Not now. One time backwards, he was a Chinese exchange student. It was a different time. Lurch grabbed the paper. Let me see that. Always many incidents that you virtually inevitably learned of. Lasting evil. Junkyard wanted no part of it. Lasting evil? No way. I got it, said Swazi. Swaza Neuf was his full pledge name, as in the French number, Soixante Neuf. Ginge figured it out too. It's the letters, boys. Take the first letters. And take out the of, said Swaz. We lined them up. Always many incidents that you virtually inevitably learned of, lasting evil. We all realized at once. They spelled out Amityville, the Amityville Horror House. Just a 30 or 40-minute drive away to get the last brick. We piled into 2 cars, hooting and hollering, and headed out like we were going to a party. Not like we were heading to a house that was possessed by Satan or anything, where children were murdered, where malevolent, violent infestations of evil forces spurred a series of films and books, where Ronald DeFeo Jr. shot and killed his family, and a year later the Lutz family moved in and soon experienced demonic forces, ghostly visions, and a demonic pig named Jody. Yeah, that house. If you don't know the details of perhaps the most infamous house in America, here's the baseline. The horror house was a Dutch colonial located at 112 Ocean Avenue in a Tony Canal Front neighborhood in Amityville, Long Island. In November of 1974, Ron Butch DeFeo Jr. shot and killed 6 family members in their sleep, in their beds, with a 35mm rifle. Neighbors never heard a sound or a shot, and there was no sign of struggle. He claimed voices told him to do it. 1 year later, George and Kathy Lutz moved in after buying the house on the cheap for $80,000. A bargain at the time due to the murders, but a formidable sum nonetheless. 28 days later, they moved out, leaving all their belongings behind. The book recounting their experiences sold 6 million copies. I read it as a teenager, and it freaked me the hell out. The movie came out as I was a freshman in high school, and the Lutzes passed every lie detector test thrown their way by skeptics. It was on the ride over that I started recalling some of the events from the book, and it was on the way over that I pointed out that I was not so much scared of the house. I was a little. And it wasn't so much whether the evil was real or not, or was even still there. But what gnawed at me, what you had to wonder about, was just what kind of people could live in a place like that. I mean, would you? For even one night at any price? Not if you had read the book, I guarantee that much. So I felt we had to be careful if we were going to trespass on these probably psycho Satan-worshipping people's property at 2 a.m. in the morning, where they would have the right to shoot us by New York law, or worse, lock us under the stairs, call in the GIMP, or sacrifice us to Jody the pig. That was my headspace as we exited the parkway for Amityville. Yeah, we were all thoroughly spooked by the time we got there, and only me, Scrub, and Twinkle Toes would even get out of the cars. Fuck this shit, Not Now kept saying in his Chinese accent. I'm not gonna die for a stupid brick. I was pretty bold and reckless at this point in life, and even though I had butterflies in my belly as we pulled up, I was ready and willing. But as soon as I saw the house, I immediately regretted any previous tough talk. My stomach dropped to the floor, killing the butterflies as I saw with my own eyes the cover of the novel that terrorized me. We made our way onto the front lawn. We searched around the grass for the brick. In all likelihood, the brothers flung it here earlier in the night. I avoided looking in the house for fear of what I might see, but eventually something told me I was being watched from inside, and there was nothing I could do to stop myself from looking in. In the closest room to the street, a kind of finished porch with windows everywhere, there were 6 naked bodies, motionless, featureless, pale. I could feel my heart pounding through my chest. Scrub, Scrub, I whispered. Look. Scrub's eyes widened, but then narrowed back. Look, they're effing mannequins. I mouthed back at him. What the F? I wish I could tell you now that I knew why there were 6 mannequins in the front room. I never got to the bottom of that mystery. Maybe it was to scare off assholes like us that just wouldn't leave them alone to live their lives. But I like to think now, having survived, that there was some sinister use for them. But for the life of me, I've yet to come up with any plausible theories. Not finding anything, Scrub and myself headed to the rear, leaving Twinkle Toes to continue scouring the front yard. In person, the house looked much different than the one you see in the movies or the book cover. I mean, the fine details of the home and those signature attic pie-shaped windows at the upper precipice of its side were recreated perfectly for the films. But in reality, the front of the home is actually sideways to the street, and the homes along the water were stacked right on top of each other. So there was just a narrow path leading from the front of the house to the rear. So crouching down, me and Scrub worked our way back to the water's edge, near the infamous boathouse. Nary a brick to be found anywhere. Maybe there's no brick railway. Maybe this is bullshit. You know, you're right. I don't care if it's here. This is bullshit. Tried, right? Just then, every hair on both our necks stood up at once. Our eyes connected, and I could see that he felt the same thing I was feeling. We both knew instantly that there was a presence with us. We both felt it. Slowly, our heads turned back towards the house in synchronicity. And there, standing at the rear door, right near the path we had come in through, was a woman in a robe. Not a bathrobe, but what I can only best describe as a priest robe, or in this case, a priestess's robe. The wind blew her long black hair, her skin pale like milk, her eyes devoid, her expression unreadable. Minutes passed, and still she stood there in what seemed like a trance, gazing beyond us and over our heads. Tone. We were beyond the required pledge name etiquette now. We were no longer on a fraternity brick hunt. What the fuck we do, Charlie? Do you think she sees us? Maybe she called the cops. I think we get the fuck out of here now. This, however, was easier said than done. The only way out was right past her, within reach of her arms. It was that or into the river. And believe me, we considered that option. Skidell and I stared at each other for a long moment. We didn't have to say anything, though. We both understood what we had to do. We stood up, and we strolled right past her like we were walking down Main Street, USA. Now, it would be a much scarier story if she attacked us, or if a coven of witches emerged to carry us to the basement for a sacrifice, or even if she just hissed at us. But the truth of the matter, what happened, as best I remember it, is she didn't so much as flinch as we walked by. Now, granted, I was too scared to look directly in her face, but through my peripheral vision, I could see that her gaze stayed fixated on something in the distance, perhaps the boathouse or perhaps somewhere out over the river. She never turned to see us leave. I don't think she even realized we were there, and if she did, she never acknowledged it. Now, can I explain her actions at 3 a.m. in the morning? Not in the least. Let's think about it this way. Me and Scrub, we were not little guys. Shit, Scrub stood 6'4", 6'5", and she showed zero fear of us. No concern whatsoever that we had some ill intent. So I don't know, I just can't explain it. When we hit the street, Twinkle Toes was already in the car, and both cars were already moving when we piled in, like a scene from the Dexter Lake Club in Animal House, tires squealing and legs flailing as they hauled us in. According to the brothers, we were the only pledge class that failed to bring back the final brick, the most valued of all, love brick. I find it somewhat ironic that the Hofstra Teague pledge class of 1985 gifted a brick of love to one of the most demonic homes in America. Perhaps the ground swallowed her up, spit her out, or perhaps the inhabitants who found her were touched, and she resides on the fireplace mantle to this day. The brothers claimed the brick was there, in plain sight and easy to find, and insisted we go back the next night to make amends. But we protested, and though they hung it over our heads for most of that Saturday, by happy hour we were with the brothers and McKeeves playing Zoom Shorts Perfectliano on a beer-soaked table and singing, "Bye-bye, Miss American Pie. I drove my Chevy to the levee, but the levee was dry." And good old boys were drinking whiskey and rye, singing, "This'll be the day that I die. This'll be the day that I die." And no one gave a shit anymore. Epilogue. Some of the names have been changed to protect the guilty. So that is episode number 1 of Always Many Incidents. I hope you enjoyed it. Please subscribe. And if you did enjoy this content, like I said, episode 2, we're going to have Big Tone, also known as Scrub, who was there that night to talk about this incident. Have a good day, people.